The hulking form of the K'tharr warship, Vorcha's Claw, blotted out the stars above Outpost Epsilon, a forgotten speck of human ingenuity clinging to a barren asteroid in the Zeta Reticuli system. Inside the station's cramped command center, Administrator Eva Rostova watched the alien vessels approach on the main view screen. Its surface, a mottled gray-green, bristled with weapon emplacements that could atomize Epsilon with a casual discharge. "They're hailing us again, Administrator," Lieutenant Jianli reported, his voice tight. At 26, he was young for his post, but the isolation of Epsilon meant everyone pulled more than their weight. Eva nodded, her gaze fixed on the alien ship. "On screen, Lieutenant. Let's see what Grand Marshal Thrax has to say this time." The image flickered, replaced by the reptilian visage of Thrax. His scales were the color of dried blood, and his yellow, slitted eyes regarded them with undisguised contempt. A deep, guttural voice, translated by the station's struggling AI, filled the room. "Human Administrator Rostova, you have had 3 rotations to consider our generous offer. Relinquish this outpost and its mining rights to the K'tharr Imperium. Refusal will be met with re-education." The K'tharr word for re-education had a chillingly final connotation. Epsilon was a scrapyard, a testament to human stubbornness. Officially, it was a deep space resource extraction facility. Unofficially, it was where obsolete freighters, defunct satellites, and the occasional decommissioned military drone came to die, or rather, to be picked apart by a skeleton crew of 150 souls. The mining rights, Thrax referred to, were for a recently discovered vein of gravitonium-7, a rare isotope vital for FTL drives. The K'tharr, despite their formidable military, lagged behind humanity in FTL efficiency. "Grand Marshal Thrax," Eva replied, her voice calm, betraying none of the cold dread coiling in her stomach. "Outpost Epsilon is sovereign territory of the Sol Federation. Your offer is an ultimatum, and my answer remains the same, no." Thrax's lipless mouth curled into something resembling a sneer. "Predictable. Your species clings to sentimentality. This rock is worthless, save for the isotope beneath it. Your Federation is distant. Your fleet, inadequate to challenge the might of the Imperium in this sector." He wasn't entirely wrong. Epsilon was far from core Federation space. Help, if it came at all, would be weeks, possibly months, away. The K'tharr had likely timed their move perfectly. "We are aware of our strategic position, Marshal," Eva said, "and we are prepared to defend it." A harsh bark of laughter erupted from Thrax. "With what, human? Your repurposed mining lasers, your antiquated defense grid. We have studied your species. You are soft, dependent on comfort. You lack the warrior spirit of the K'tharr." Eva allowed a small, tight smile. "You've studied us, have you? Perhaps your intelligence reports are out of date." "They are comprehensive," Thrax growled. "You have 1 solar cycle to evacuate essential personnel. After that, we will take what is ours. Thrax out." The screen went blank. A heavy silence descended on the command center. Jian let out a shaky breath. "Administrator, what do we do? We can't fight that thing." Eva turned from the screen, her gaze sweeping over the tense faces of her bridge crew. They were miners, engineers, scientists, not soldiers. But they were also human. "No, Lieutenant," she said, her voice hardening. "We can't fight it conventionally. But the K'tharr have made a critical error." Chief Engineer Marcus Mac O'Connell, a man whose face was a roadmap of grease stains and worry lines, grunted. "And what's that, Eva? Aside from underestimating our ability to look terrified?" "They think this is just a mining outpost," Eva said, a glint in her eye. "They see a scrapyard. They don't see the potential." She tapped a console, bringing up a schematic of Epsilon. It wasn't just the station itself. It was the sprawling debris field surrounding it, the graveyard of ships. "They think we're soft. They think we'll break. They're about to learn that. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our warships or our numbers." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "It's our ability to improvise with whatever junk we have lying around. And gentlemen and ladies, we have a lot of junk." A flicker of understanding, then dawning excitement, began to spread across their faces. The K'tharr saw a pile of trash. Eva Rostova saw an arsenal. The next 24 hours on Outpost Epsilon were a blur of controlled chaos. Eva's plan, audacious and bordering on insane, was quickly disseminated. Every able-bodied colonist was mobilized. The K'tharr, in their arrogance, maintained a loose sensor sweep, confident their sheer presence was enough to cow the humans. They didn't register the frantic, purposeful activity in the metallic guts of the asteroid and the surrounding debris field. Mac O'Connell was in his element. The main engineering bay, usually a place of routine diagnostics and repairs, transformed into a mad scientist laboratory. His team, a motley crew of grizzled space hands and bright-eyed junior techs, swarmed over salvaged components. "All right, people," Mac bellowed over the din of plasma cutters and rivet guns. "Priority 1, the scarecrows. I want every defunct drone, every automated mining rig, every air car with a working thruster patched up and fitted with a basic remote interface. Slap some salvaged plating on them, make them look vaguely threatening. From a distance, we're not going for functional, we're going for a crowd." Meanwhile, Dr. Eris Thorne, Epsilon's resident astrophysicist and eccentric genius, was holed up in the station's observatory, his wild gray hair sticking out at even more alarming angles than usual. His task was to turn Epsilon's primary sensor, array, designed for detecting faint gravimetric anomalies, into something far more active. "The K'tharr shields are formidable, no doubt," Eris muttered to himself, surrounded by glowing schematics projected in the air. "But all shields have resonance frequencies. If we can generate a focused, chaotic gravimetric pulse, just enough to make their targeting sensors jitter at the critical moment." He cackled, a sound that usually unnerved his colleagues, but now brought a strange comfort. Eva moved between departments, a whirlwind of encouragement and decisive orders. She found Jian Li in the makeshift armory, formerly a storage bay for spare parts. He and a handful of security personnel were modifying mining charges. "Standard plasma charges are too slow, too predictable," Jian explained, holding up a canister packed with a volatile crystalline compound. "This is dragon's breath, a byproduct of the gravitonium refinement process. Highly unstable, but it burns hot and fast. We're rigging them with proximity detonators and magnetic clamps." "Think they'll stick to a K'tharr hull?" Eva asked. Gianni grinned. "If we can get them close enough, they'll melt through it like butter through a bulkhead in a core breach." The largest and arguably most insane part of the plan involved the Old Lady, a colossal decommissioned colony ship, the SS Wanderer, that had been slowly cannibalized for parts over the last decade. It lay half embedded in a large, icy asteroid a few kilometers from Epsilon. "The Wanderer's primary fusion core is still intact, right?" Eva had asked Mac earlier. Mac had choked on his synth coffee. "Intact? Eva, that thing is a Class 7 core. It powered a ship for 10,000 colonists. We haven't dared touch it because if it goes critical, it'll sterilize this entire sector." "Precisely," Eva had replied with a chilling smile. "We're not going to start it. We're going to make the K'tharr think we're about to." The plan involved rerouting Epsilon's main power conduits through heavily shielded emergency umbilicals hastily salvaged and strung across the void to the Wanderer's core containment system. The goal wasn't ignition, but to build up a massive, detectable energy signature, a bluff of apocalyptic proportions. Hours bled into each other. Exhaustion gnawed at the edges of everyone's resolve, but the shared purpose, the sheer audacity of their gamble, fueled them. They were David, cobbling together a slingshot from cosmic driftwood to face Goliath. As the K'tharr deadline approached, the scarecrows were deployed. Dozens of ungainly jury-rigged craft, many trailing wires and shedding minor debris, drifted out from Epsilon and the surrounding scrapyard, taking up haphazard positions. They were controlled by a patched-together network, their movements deliberately clumsy and erratic. From the bridge of the Vorcha's Claw, Tactical Officer Gravok reported, "Marshal, the humans are deploying constructs, primitive drones. By the look of them, no significant energy signatures detected." Thrax peered at his own tactical display. The human fleet was a joke. Insignificant, a child's toys, they seek to intimidate us with numbers. Their desperation is Pathetic. He leaned back in his command chair. Prepare the primary disruptors. Target the station's central command. We will offer them one final chance to surrender before we demonstrate the price of defiance. On Epsilon, Eva watched her own tactical display. The scarecrows were in position. Aris gave a thumbs up from his station. Gravimetric pulse generator is charged and ready, Administrator. On your mark, I'll give their sensors a bad case of the hiccups. Mac's voice crackled over the comms from the Wanderer's vicinity, where he was personally overseeing the final power connections with a small, brave team. Eva, the old lady is wired. We can light her up like a supernova on your command. Just try not to vaporize us out here when you do. Understood, Mac. Stay safe, Eva said, her heart pounding. The moment of truth was upon them. She looked at Jian. Lieutenant, prepare the Dragon's Breath teams. This is going to be a close-run thing. Jian nodded, his face grim, but determined. They're ready, Administrator. Waiting for the fireworks. Eva took a deep breath. All stations report readiness. One by one, the acknowledgments came in. The scrapyard was silent, but it was the silence of a predator holding its breath. Marshal Thrax, Eva's voice, steady and clear, broadcast across the void. You were given a solar cycle. That cycle is now over. You have underestimated our resolve. We will not surrender Outpost Epsilon. On the Vorcha's claw, Thrax let out a guttural snort. So, the vermin chooses defiance. Very well. Tactical. Open a channel. Let them witness their folly. To Eva, he broadcast, your bravery is misplaced, human. Observe. The K'tharr warship's forward disruptor cannons began to glow with malevolent orange energy. On Epsilon's main screen, the sight was terrifying. Those cannons could punch through planetary shields. Epsilon's aging defense grid wouldn't last a second. Fire, Thrax commanded. Beams of incandescent energy lanced out from the Vorcha's claw. Aris, now, Eva snapped. Deep within Epsilon, Dr. Thorne slammed his fist down on an activation panel, giving them the cosmic jitters. A wave of focused, chaotic gravimetric distortion washed over the K'tharr warship. It wasn't powerful enough to damage the ship directly, but its effect on the finely tuned targeting sensors of the disruptor cannons was immediate and profound. On the Vorcha's claw's bridge, alarms blared. Marshal, targeting interference. The beam, they're scattering, Gravok exclaimed, his mandibles clicking in agitation. The disruptor blasts, instead of converging on Epsilon, went wide, splashing harmlessly against the asteroid belt or dissipating into empty space. One beam, wildly off course, vaporized a distant, uninhabited moonlet. Thrax surged to his feet, his eyes blazing. Report. What is the source of this interference? Unknown, Marshal. It's a gravimetric pulse, but highly localized and erratic. It's playing havoc with our active sensor locks. Eva allowed herself a grim smile. Phase 1 was a success. Mac lighted up. With pleasure, Eva, Mac's voice crackled. Aboard the skeletal remains of the SS Wanderer, he and his team threw the main breakers. Power, raw and immense, surged from Epsilon into the ancient colony ship's dormant fusion core systems. Warning lights designed to signal an impending meltdown flared to life across the Wanderer's decaying hull. On the K'tharr ship's sensors, a new terrifying energy signature bloomed. Marshal, a sensor technician shrieked, his voice cracking. Massive energy buildup detected. Coordinates match the large derelict vessel. It's a Class 7 fusion core and it's going critical. Thrax stared at the readings, his blood-red scales paling slightly. A Class 7 core detonation, even a contained one at this range, could cripple his ship if not destroy it outright. His warriors were brave but not suicidal. Evasive maneuvers, Thrax roared. All engines, reverse thrust. Get us clear of that detonation radius. The Vorcha's claw, for all its bulk, responded with surprising agility, its powerful engines flaring as it began to back away from Epsilon and the ominously glowing Wanderer. They're falling for it, Jian breathed, a grin spreading across his face. Don't celebrate yet, Lieutenant. Eva cautioned, though her own heart was hammering with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. This just buys us time. Scarecrow teams, advance, make it look like we're pressing the attack. The motley collection of patched-up drones and repurposed vehicles lurched forward, their thrusters sputtering. From the K'tharr perspective, it looked like a desperate suicidal charge by a technologically inferior foe, emboldened by the apparent threat of the Wanderer's core. The humans are attacking, Gravok reported, bewildered. Their primitive craft are approaching. Thrax, already unnerved by the Phantom core detonation, snarled. Point defense systems. Destroy those irritants, but maintain distance from that. Bomb. The Vorcha's claw's point defense lasers, far more numerous and rapid-firing than its main cannons, began to scythe through the advancing scarecrows. Bits of debris and shattered hulls filled the space between the two forces. It was a turkey shoot, but it served its purpose. It kept the K'tharr distracted and focused on the immediate threat, while their ship continued to retreat from the Wanderer. Jian, Eva said, her voice low and intense. Your teams. The Vorcha's claw is exposing its ventral side as it pulls back. That's where our intel suggested the secondary shield emitters are weakest. It's now or never. Jian gripped his comm mic. Dragon teams, go, go, go. Target designated vulnerable sectors. Make every shot count. From hidden launch tubes on Epsilon and several larger pieces of nearby debris, small, agile craft, modified escape pods and survey shuttles, shot out. They were painted black, running silent, their heat signatures masked by the general chaos of the Scarecrow attack and the K'thar's own weapons fire. Each carried a payload of Jian's dragon's breath charges. They weaved through the storm of laser fire and exploding scarecrows, tiny needles aiming for the chinks in Goliath's armor. The K'tharr, their attention divided, their sensors still slightly fuzzy from Aris's gravimetric prank, were slow to react to this new, far more dangerous threat. The dragon teams were Epsilon's fangs, piloted by a mix of security personnel and civilian volunteers with exceptional piloting skills, honed by years of navigating dense asteroid fields. These small craft were nimble and difficult to target. Their mission was simple. Get close enough to the Vorcha's claw to attach their magnetic charges to the weaker points in its shielding and hull. Pilot Lena Switch Petrova, a former asteroid racer with nerves of pure steel, weaved her modified shuttle, the Rock Skipper, through a hail of K'tharr point defense fire. Explosions blossomed around her, fragments of destroyed scarecrows pinging off her reinforced cockpit. Eating static out here, Command, she grunted into her comm, banking sharply to avoid a trio of energy bolts. But the big lizard's belly is wide open. The K'tharr warship, in its haste to avoid the phantom menace of the Wanderer, was indeed exposing its less armored underbelly. Its point defense guns, designed primarily to engage targets at medium to long range, struggled to track the small, fast-moving human craft zipping in close. Team Alpha, targets acquired. Releasing payload, came a calm voice over the comms. Team Bravo charges away. Team Charlie got a clean run. Bombs, charges gone. One by one, the Dragon teams reached their designated drop points. The magnetic clamps on the Dragon's breath charges engaged, sticking them to the K'tharr hull. Like metallic barnacles, the proximity fuses were set to detonate in a staggered sequence. On the bridge of the Vorcha's claw, new alarms began to shriek. Marshal! Multiple micro-breaches detected on the ventral hull. Minor explosions. Minor? Thrax bellowed. What is hitting us? Small high-energy impacts, Marshal. They seem to be attaching themselves to the hull before detonating. They're bypassing the primary shields in those localized areas. The Dragon's breath charges weren't powerful enough to destroy the warship, not individually, but they were hot. Incredibly hot. And they were numerous. They began to melt through the outer armor, superheating sections of the hull, and critically, damaging the localized shield emitters and sensor arrays in those regions. Switch, you got K'tharr fighters launching, Jian warned from Epsilon. Looks like they're finally taking you seriously. Indeed, hatches were sliding open on the Vorcha's claw, and sleek, agile K'tharr interceptors began to emerge, their weapons spitting green energy. About damn time they joined the party, Switch retorted, jinking violently as a K'tharr fighter locked onto her. Dragon teams, scatter and return. Job done. The small human craft broke off their attack, darting back towards the cover of the debris field, the K'tharr fighters hot on their tails. It was a desperate race, and not all of them would make it. But the damage was done. Sections of the Vorcha's claw's ventral plating were glowing cherry red. Internal fires were reported. More importantly, significant portions of its ventral shield grid were failing. Aris, how are those sensors looking? Eva asked, her knuckles white as she gripped her console. Their ventral sensor arrays are a mess. Administrator, Aris reported with glee. The dragon's breath cooked 'em good. They're half blind on that side. Mac, Eva commanded. Phase 2. Give them something new to worry about. Aboard the Wanderer, Mac grinned, sweat dripping from his brow. Copy that, Eva. Switching the old lady from imminent meltdown to really angry ghost. The massive energy signature from the Wanderer didn't dissipate. Instead, it began to fluctuate wildly, pulsing in an unnatural rhythm. Simultaneously, powerful directional electromagnetic pulses began to emanate from the derelict colony ship, targeted at the already damaged ventral side of the K'tharr warship. These EMPs weren't strong enough to disable the entire K'tharr vessel, but focused on the weakened sections where shields were down and systems were already compromised by the dragon's breath. They began to wreak havoc. On the Vorcha's claw, lights flickered, consoles sparked. Marshal, EMP interference, we're losing secondary systems on the ventral decks. Weapons control in sectors Gamma 7 through Delta 4 is offline. Thrax stared at the cascading system failures on his main display. The Phantom core detonation had been a ruse. The primitive drone attack, a distraction. The real attack had been those small, almost insignificant craft. And now, the derelict was actively attacking him with electromagnetic weaponry. These humans. They weren't fighting like any species he had encountered. They were using their refuse, their environment, their sheer desperate cunning. Recall the fighters, Thrax ordered, a note of grudging respect, quickly suppressed in his voice. Re-establish. Shield integrity. All remaining point defense, concentrate fire on that derelict. I want it silenced. The K'tharr fighters, peeling off from their pursuit of the retreating dragon teams, turned their attention to the Wanderer. But the old lady was a big target, and her ancient, thick hull, though scarred, could absorb a surprising amount of punishment from fighter-scale weaponry. More importantly, she was still broadcasting those disruptive EMPs. The tide, ever so slightly, was beginning to turn. The K'tharr were no longer dictating the terms of engagement. They were reacting. And they were bleeding. The K'tharr fighters swarmed the SS Wanderer, their energy cannons scoring fiery trails across its pock-marked hull. Mac and his small team, huddled deep within the most shielded section of the ancient ship, felt the impacts as dull thuds. They're definitely annoyed, Eva, Mac reported, his voice strained. Hull integrity on the outer sections is dropping, but the EMP emitters are still operational. How much longer do you need us to keep this up? As long as you can, Mac, Eva replied, her eyes glued to the tactical display. The Vorcha's claw was trying to maneuver, to present a less damaged flank, but its movements were sluggish. The combination of the dragon's breath attacks and the EMPs was clearly having an effect. The goal isn't to destroy the Wanderer, it's to keep their attention divided and their systems scrambled. On Epsilon's command deck, Jean was tracking the casualties. We lost 3 dragon teams, Administrator. 6 good people. His voice was heavy. But the others made it back most. With minor damage, they delivered their packages. Ava's heart ached for the lost, but there was no time for grief, not yet. They knew the risks, Lieutenant. Their sacrifice bought us this chance. She focused on the K'tharr warship. Their ventral shields are still flickering. Aris, can you give their main targeting another nudge? Something subtle this time. We don't want them to realize it's us again, just make them doubt their own systems. Subtlety, my dear Administrator, is my middle name, Aris chirped, his fingers flying across his console. A gentle caress of gravimetric dissonance, shall we say? just enough to make their long-range targeting solutions drift. The Vorcha's claw, frustrated by the resilient Wanderer and the ongoing systems failures, attempted to re-engage Epsilon with its main disruptors. But as its cannons charged, subtle, almost imperceptible gravimetric distortions, too faint to trigger broad alarms, played across its focusing arrays. "Marshal, we have a firing solution on the human station," Gravok reported, though a hint of uncertainty tinged his voice. "However, the telemetry shows minor fluctuations. Confidence is 92%. Normally, 92% was acceptable, but after the earlier targeting fiasco and the ongoing chaos, Thrax hesitated. "Recalibrate. I want a 99% solution before we fire." This hesitation was exactly what Eva was counting on, while the K'tharr flagship was busy dealing with its internal issues, and the ghost ship, Epsilon's own unconventional arsenal, was preparing for its encore. The scrapyard surrounding Epsilon wasn't just a collection of dead ships, it was a minefield in waiting. For years, Mac and his engineers had been slowly, painstakingly rigging some of the larger pieces of debris with thrusters and guidance packages salvaged from irreparable vessels. Their original purpose was for controlled deorbiting or repositioning, valuable salvage. Now they had a new, more aggressive role. These were the anvil charges, massive, inert hunks of metal propelled by jury-rigged engines aimed not to explode but to impact. "Anvil teams, status?" Eva asked. "Anvils 1 through 12 are green, Administrator," came the reply from the Salvage Control Center, a reinforced bunker deep within the asteroid. "We're using the station's old mass driver guidance system, patched into the debris thrusters. It's crude, but at this range it'll be like throwing boulders." "The K'tharr are distracted," Eva said. "Their ventral sensors are compromised. They're expecting energy weapons. They won't be looking for a kinetic attack from multiple vectors." She took a breath. "Launch the anvils. Target their maneuvering thrusters and any exposed weapon emplacements." Silently, from the depths of the debris field, a dozen large chunks of scrap, the stripped-down hull of a freighter here, a massive engine block there, began to accelerate. They moved slowly at first, then gained momentum, their trajectories carefully calculated to converge on the Vorcha's claw. They had no energy signatures to speak of, beyond the faint heat of their primitive chemical thrusters, easily lost in the background radiation and the chaos of the ongoing fight around the Wanderer. One of the K'tharr fighter pilots returning to rearm spotted them first. Unidentified objects approaching the flagship. Multiple contacts, no energy readings. They looked like asteroids. On the Vorcha's claws bridge, confusion reigned. "Asteroids? Are they propelled?" Thrax demanded. "Affirmative, Marshal. Low velocity but on collision courses." The K'tharr point defense systems, already strained and partially damaged, tried to engage these new threats, but they were designed to intercept fast-moving missiles and energy bolts, not slow, massive chunks of inert metal. Some anvils were hit, breaking apart or deflecting slightly, but others plowed on. The first anvil, the mangled core of a derelict mining hauler weighing several thousand tons, slammed into one of the Vorcha's claw's primary maneuvering thruster clusters on its port side. There was no explosion, just a sickening crunch of tortured metal and a violent shudder that ran through the entire warship. "Port side thrusters unresponsive," an engineering officer yelled. "Hull breach on deck 12. Another anvil, a dense block of a former warship's armor plating, smashed into a dorsal missile battery, crushing it flat. A third struck near a damaged shield emitter, the kinetic energy causing further structural failure and a cascade of secondary explosions from within the K'tharr ship. The effect was brutal and disorienting. The K'tharr were prepared for energy weapons, for sophisticated electronic warfare. They were not prepared for an enemy literally throwing a scrapyard at them. Thrax watched the devastation, his reptilian face a mask of fury and disbelief. His magnificent warship, the pride of the K'tharr fleet in this sector, was being systematically dismantled by junk. "All remaining fighters," Thrax roared, "destroy those projectiles," and someone silenced that cursed derelict. But it was becoming increasingly clear that the K'tharr were losing control. Their ship was damaged, their systems failing, their tactical situation deteriorating rapidly. The humans, these supposedly soft, technologically inferior beings, were fighting with a ferocity and a perverse ingenuity that bordered on madness. The battle for Outpost Epsilon had devolved into a brutal close-quarters brawl. The Vorcha's claw, crippled and listing, was a wounded beast, lashing out blindly. Its remaining fighters, harried by Epsilon's few remaining armed shuttles, and the constant threat of more anvils emerging from the debris, struggled to defend their mothership. Mac, still aboard the SS Wanderer, watched the K'tharr flagship take a pounding. "Eva, they're focusing a lot of fire on us now. The old lady's taking a beating. EMP emitters are down to 40%. "Hold on, Mac. Just a little longer," Eva urged. Her own command center was shaking from stray K'tharr shots that got past their flickering, overloaded defense grid. "Aris, can we pinpoint their primary command bridge with all this chaos?" Aris, his face illuminated by the glow of his wildly fluctuating sensor displays, shook his head. "Too much interference, Administrator. Their internal shielding is still mostly intact around the core command structures, but their overall energy signature is dropping. They're diverting power to damage control and life support." "Jian, any of the Dragon teams rearmed and ready for another pass?" Jian checked his tactical board. "2 shuttles are ready, loaded with the last of the Dragon's breath. But Administrator, sending them back out there now, their point defenses are still active even if degraded." Eva knew it was a risk, a terrible one, but the K'tharr were on the ropes. One more solid blow in the right place might be enough. "We need to target their main weapon systems or their engine core directly, something to make them realize this fight is no longer worth the cost." It was then that Thrax, in a desperate gamble, made his move. With his ship crippled, his pride in tatters, he decided on a course of action born of fury and a complete misjudgment of his enemy. "Damage report," Thrax snarled at his battered bridge crew. "Main disruptors offline, Marshal. Starboard engines at 20%. Ventral armor compromised in multiple sectors. We've lost contact with decks 9 through 14. "Can we still target the human station's core?" Thrax demanded. "Possibly, Marshal, with our remaining torpedo launchers. But their defense grid, though weak, might intercept." "Forget the torpedoes." Thrax slammed his fist on the armrest of his command chair. The impact sent sparks flying from a damaged console. "Prepare for boarding action. We will take their station by force. We will show these primitives the meaning of K'tharr resolve." His officers stared at him, aghast. Boarding action? In their current state? Against an enemy that had proven so unexpectedly resourceful? "Marshal," Gravok ventured cautiously, "our troop transport bays are damaged. Our numbers for an effective assault are limited. We will make do." Thrax bellowed. "Their station is small. Their defenses focused outward. They will not expect a direct assault now." He was grasping at straws, trying to salvage some form of victory, or at least vengeance, from the jaws of defeat. On Epsilon, Jian's voice rose in alarm. "Administrator, K'tharr ship is launching assault pods. Multiple launches heading our way." Eva stared at the display. Assault pods. Small, heavily armored craft designed to punch through station defenses and disgorge troops. Thrax was insane. Or desperate. Or both. "He's trying to take the station," Eva breathed. "After all this, he still thinks he can win by brute force." She looked at her crew, their faces smudged with soot, streaked with sweat, but their eyes hard and resolute. "He's wrong." This was the tipping point. The K'tharr had escalated from a ranged bombardment to a direct ground assault. It was a move that reeked of desperation. "All remaining station defenses target those assault pods," Eva ordered. "Jian, mobilize all internal security. Arm every civilian volunteer who can hold a mining tool like a club. We defend Epsilon, block by block if we have to." The station's few remaining automated turrets swiveled, spitting laser fire at the incoming K'tharr pods. Some were hit, veering off course to crash into the asteroid or explode harmlessly in the void. But others, too many, pressed on. "Mac!" Eva yelled into the comm. "The Wanderer! Can you do anything more?" Mac's voice was grim. "Eva, we're running." "On fumes here. Most of our offensive systems are shot, but the old lady has one last gift to give." "What is it?" Her main maneuvering thrusters, ancient, oversized, and still partially functional. If we can overload them, create a directed plasma burst, it won't be pretty, and it'll likely finish her off. But we might be able to take out a good chunk of those assault pods if we time it right. Mac, the risk to you and your team. We're already on borrowed time, Eva. Just say the word. Eva watched the assault pods closing in. They were seconds from impact. Do it, Mac. Give 'em hell. Aboard the dying SS Wanderer, Mac and his team rerouted the last dregs of power to the colossal antique thrusters. Warning sirens blared a final, mournful chorus. Firing main thrusters. Overload sequence initiated, Mac shouted over the rising roar. For Epsilon, the Wanderer's massive engines, designed to push a city-sized ship through interstellar space, flared with an impossible, uncontrolled brilliance. A torrent of superheated plasma erupted outwards, not as a controlled burn but as a chaotic, directional explosion. The plasma wave, wider and more devastating than anyone could have predicted, washed over the trailing formation of K'tharr assault pods. Several were instantly vaporized. Others tumbled out of control, their hulls breached, their occupants cooked. The Wanderer itself, its ancient frame unable to withstand the strain, began to break apart, its last act a blaze of defiant glory. The sacrifice of the Wanderer and its brave crew decimated the K'tharr boarding force. Only a handful of pods, those at the very forefront of the assault, managed to make it through the inferno. They slammed into Epsilon's outer hull with bone-jarring force. The fight for Epsilon was about to get personal. The remaining K'tharr assault pods breached Epsilon's hull in 3 locations. Alarms blared throughout the station as emergency bulkheads slammed shut, isolating the breached sections. The acrid smell of burnt metal and alien ozone filled the corridors. Breaches on levels 3, 5, and 7, Jianli reported, his sidearm drawn. Security teams converging. Administrator, they're in. Eva watched the internal sensor feeds, her face a grim mask. The K'tharr warriors, clad in bulky environmental armor and armed with pulse rifles, were advancing, their movements brutally efficient. But they were few. The Wanderer's last stand had been devastatingly effective. They're heading for engineering and command, Eva noted. Predictable. She keyed her general comm. All Epsilon personnel, this is Rostova. The K'tharr are on board, but their numbers are broken. We know this station. They don't. Use the environment. Use your tools. Use your wits. We did not come this far to fall now. Give them nothing. Hold the line. The fighting in Epsilon's narrow corridors and cluttered maintenance shafts was savage. The K'tharr were individually stronger and better armed, but the humans had the advantage of numbers, however poorly equipped, and intricate knowledge of their home. Miners with heavy-duty plasma cutters became fearsome close-quarters combatants. Engineers depressurized sections, vented coolant gas, and set electrical traps. Scientists, using their knowledge of station systems, created diversions and misdirections. Jianli found himself leading a desperate defense of the main corridor leading to the command center. His small team of security officers, augmented by a dozen volunteers armed with everything from riot batons to repurposed survey lasers, held a barricade made of overturned equipment and welded plating. K'tharr pulse rifle fire slammed into their cover, sending molten metal spraying. "Hold the line," Jian yelled, returning fire with his service pistol. "Don't let them get a foothold." One of the K'tharr, a massive brute even by their standards, charged the barricade, firing its rifle on full auto. 2 volunteers went down. Jian gritted his teeth, aimed carefully, and squeezed off 3 rounds. The K'tharr staggered, its helmet cracking, then fell. On level 5, near engineering, Mac O'Connell, having miraculously survived the Wanderer's destruction by ejecting in a battered escape pod just moments before the final overload, found himself back in the thick of it. He'd crash-landed in a cargo bay near a breach. Now, covered in soot and nursing a broken rib, he rallied a group of shell-shocked technicians. "All right, you grease monkeys," Mac roared, hefting a massive industrial wrench. "They want our engine room. They gotta go through us. Remember all those safety overrides we complained about? Time to get creative." They turned the engineering section into a death trap, Steam vents were ruptured to create blinding fog. Gravity plating was selectively deactivated, sending K'tharr warriors tumbling into maintenance pits. Arc welders became makeshift flamethrowers. Slowly, painstakingly, the human defenders began to push the K'tharr back. The invaders, disoriented by the chaotic environment and the unexpectedly fierce resistance, found their superior training and weaponry negated by the sheer bloody-minded determination of Epsilon's inhabitants. They had expected cowed civilians. They found enraged hornets. On the bridge of the Vorcha's Claw, Thrax watched his boarding party's biosigns wink out one by one. His ship was a wreck. His assault force was being annihilated. His tactical display was a sea of red warnings. "Marshal," Krivok said, his voice hollow, "the boarding action has failed. We have lost over 90% of the assault teams. The human station, it still fights." Thrax stared at the image of Epsilon on his view screen. It was battered, scarred, sections of it open to the void. But it was undeniably, defiantly, still there. And the faint, almost imperceptible energy signature of its main systems was stabilizing. He had lost. Not just the battle, but the entire premise of K'tharr superiority. These humans with their scrapyard fleet and their suicidal tactics had defeated one of the Imperium's finest warships. A comm channel opened unbidden. It was Eva Rostova. Her face was smudged with grime, her uniform torn, but her eyes blazed with an unyielding fire. "Grand Marshal Thrax," she said, her voice echoing with exhaustion and triumph. "Your troops are defeated. Your ship is crippled. Your ultimatum is void. This is Outpost Epsilon. It remains and will always remain sovereign Federation territory. I suggest you take what's left of your command and leave our system. Now." Thrax looked at her, then at the ruin of his bridge. There was no arrogance left in him, only a dawning, terrible understanding. He had not just underestimated their technology, he had fundamentally misunderstood their spirit. "Human," he said, his voice a dry rasp. "You fight like no other." "We fight for our homes, Marshal," Eva replied. "We fight with what we have and we don't give up, ever." She paused. "Leave, before we decide to salvage your ship too." The threat, as audacious as everything else the humans had done, hung in the air. Thrax knew with a certainty that chilled him to his core that she meant it. He gave the order. "All remaining K'tharr forces, disengage, retreat." The few remaining K'tharr fighters broke off their engagements. The Vorcha's Claw, trailing debris and venting atmosphere, slowly, painfully, turned its battered prow away from Epsilon and began to limp towards the jump point, a broken testament to human resilience. Silence, thick and heavy, descended upon Epsilon's command center. Then, a cheer started, weak at first, then growing in volume until it was a deafening roar of relief and victory. Eva sagged back into her chair, the adrenaline finally ebbing, leaving an ocean of exhaustion in its wake. They had done it. The scrapyard outpost, the forgotten speck, had faced down an Imperium warship and won. Jianli approached her, his face bruised but beaming. "Administrator, we did it." Eva managed a weary smile. "Yes, Lieutenant, we did." She looked at the main view screen, now showing the retreating K'tharr vessel shrinking in the distance. "Let the word go out. Humanity may not always have the biggest stick, but we have the deepest toolbox, and we know how to use every last piece of junk in it." The legend of the scrapyard gambit would spread through the Federation, a testament to the ingenuity, courage, and sheer stubborn refusal to yield that defined humanity, even at the farthest, most forgotten edges of space. And perhaps, just perhaps, other species in the galaxy would learn to look twice before underestimating a pile of human junk. It might just have teeth, and it would definitely bite back.